LAWsome by Consultwebs. Breakthrough insights to build a thriving law firm with your host, Tanner Jones.
Many attorneys originally went to law school to serve a greater purpose, but then the reality set in of what it takes to be successful, and those high aspirations sometimes get lost in the day-to-day of practicing law. Today, we're speaking with Leigh Daniel about finding the purpose in your practice and how you can get continued satisfaction from your legal work. Leigh's been practicing law since 1994. She currently runs her own law firm, practicing family law located in Huntsville, Alabama. Leigh, I've been looking forward to this interview. So wonderful to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Tanner.
So let's just dive in. What does it mean to you to have a sense of purpose in your law practice, or how do you define that?
Well, if we didn't have a sense of purpose, I can't imagine wanting to do divorce law. I mean, when people say to me all the time, why or how do you do this or why do you do this? It's because on the other side of that, I see that I'm helping somebody make their life better. So I think it's crucial to have purpose.
I would agree. I think that's important for every industry, especially your particular vertical. So kind of drilling down deeper into that, why is having a sense of purpose in your work important?
Well, because there's, like you mentioned when you first started, there are so many things, especially if you run your own practice, that can distract you from why you're doing what you're doing. There's other lawyers, there's running your business, payroll, taxes, you name it. There's so many things that can take your attention from why you're really doing what you're doing. And those things can overcome all that good if you start focusing on all that minutia that's keeping you stressed out, right? Instead of focusing on what's making you feel good.
I agree. I mean, it's a target, if you will. It's a guiding principle that there's going to be noise in any business, especially running your own business. There are a lot of distractions, so having clear direction from the very beginning kind of guides that. And you've lived this, and I've seen that. I've personally experienced that. What benefits have you seen in your practice from being very clear on that purpose?
Well, I definitely think that keeping that clear idea of what our outcome is, and for me, it's helping my client get into a better place. Keeping that on top of my mind when I'm meeting with them prevents me from being short with them, prevents me from treating them like they're just a case file. I mean, these are people whose lives are going to be impacted. And it might keep me up at night, but it definitely is important to think about that, because otherwise you're thinking about what I've got to do next. And I've had clients that have come in that I've had one girl just break down and cry. And I said, why on earth are you crying? Because it really wasn't a good time to cry. And she said, because you're listening to me. And if you don't have a focus, then you're going to start, oh, what am I doing next? What's happening? Right? I mean, you're going to have to think about, why am I here? And once you've been doing it as long as I have, it's pretty much, I want to say it's second nature, but even I can get caught up in what's going to happen next? Do I have a court deadline? Things of that nature. And that prevents you from really focusing on what's important.
What impacts does having a sense of purpose have on your team? Your staff or your other attorneys, and even the ones that you interact with on a day-to-day?
Well, I have some great attorneys, and I have a new attorney, relatively new attorney to my office, who worked at a big corporate firm. And he was telling me what a huge difference he feels just in the way the office feels. It's not just in the work, but just the feeling, the happiness, the laughter, there's lots of dogs here as well. So it's a different, it makes you want to come to work every day instead of dreading it. So that's what you want.
A lot of what I'm hearing is arguably culture. So how would you delineate, or is there a delineation between having a purpose as a business and having a culture as a business?
Well, actually, I've been reading about culture a lot, and I think that it's super important to have a company culture or company purpose, and it's about gratitude for what we're doing, And that's our culture. I mean, I want our culture to be one of, we're grateful that we're helping people get to a better place in their lives. Can you imagine if you came to a divorce firm every day and you hated the thought of working with people? I mean, you have to see something bigger at the end. Otherwise, you're going to get so burned out.
And that's what I'm hearing too. I mean, I see that in running a family law practice. I'm not a practicing attorney, nor have I ever, dealt with family law issues. But I can imagine that it's a decision, it's a mindset that you have to obviously reinforce within the office probably every single day, I would imagine, in terms of being able to remind those around you why this is important, why you're doing what you're doing. And often, at least what I'm hearing, is it's an attitude. You choose to have that mindset because we don't always feel that way. Can you speak to that at all?
You absolutely have to choose it, because you can get stuck in all the negativity, no matter what kind of law you're practicing. That people come to see us because there's a problem, for the most part, right? I mean, people are never happy to see me. And so if you didn't have that attitude, this is going to sound so corny, that attitude of gratitude, then you would really hate what we do every day. And I know a lot of lawyers who absolutely hate what they do. So you do have to remind yourself and remind the people around you of why you do it.
Let's touch on that topic for a minute, because I think it is an important one. And I've been working with lawyers for over a decade now, and I've seen individuals like you that I believe have really separated yourself from the industry in terms of mindset and positivity, and often a very difficult area of law, very difficult profession. So for the attorney that may be listening, Leigh, that could be struggling with this topic and trying to find purpose within their practice, or maybe even they're struggling with finding satisfaction from their legal work, how would you address that? How would you talk to them about that challenge?
Well, when you're in business for yourself, this is going to sound counterintuitive, but I think what you need to do is to back away from it a little bit. And you need to take some time off. You need to meditate. You need to journal. You need to, if you need to take a mental health day, you don't have to call it that, but if you need to take a half a day, and that's one thing the attorneys in my office can take off as much as they need, because I know how hard they work when you have a trial or a case. But if you don't give yourself time to rejuvenate and get that second wind, then you're never going to be able to find your purpose, because you're always going to be catching up from that last big trial or that motion hearing, or that defeat, because sometimes there are going to be losses. And if you don't give yourself a little time around that, then it's really difficult to keep your eye on your purpose.
I can see that, and I think that's good advice. I'm going to ask you to be vulnerable for a minute, maybe catch you off guard. But going back several years, the first time I met you, Leigh, I was fortunate enough to randomly meet you sitting beside you on an airplane, and you had shared a story at that time about how you were, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth by any means. I want you to speak to this, but you were really struggling with this. In trying to kind of rejuvenate your drive, your motivation in this area of law, and you came back on fire, and I haven't seen you slow down since. So can you speak to that and share that with our listeners?
Well, and that was a decision that I made to be happy. And so I see a lot of really unhappy lawyers, and I think the first decision is, what are you going to do for yourself, right? Because if you're the leader of the company, if you're the CEO, if you're the partner, whatever, you're going to set the tone for the whole practice. And so you have to decide what you want. And if you're going to be a miserable individual, that is definitely going to be evident in the way that you run your business, the way you interact with your clients. And so I think the first step is deciding that you want to find purpose, that you want to feel happy. And, practicing law may not be it. And it wouldn't be it for me if I didn't see how much good I do. because I really help people so much, and that's the only reason that I do what I'm doing.
That's it. That's what pushes you through the emotions and through the struggles and getting up just to start the day even. So a lot of what we're talking about obviously requires focus. It requires effort and intentionality. Have you found that you've had to give up certain things, whether it be in your work life or in your personal life, in order to get where you are now? And kind of couple that with, is it worth that sacrifice?
Well, I think it's what I was mentioning a second ago. If it's sacrificing anything, it's sacrificing time at the office, because it's just as important to have some time away from it. And so if you're somebody that works 24 hours a day and you think you have to be doing that to be successful, then you're not giving yourself any time to recoup, right? And so I think you sacrifice being there all the time. I'm not a micromanager, but you can't do them both, right? If you don't have balance, then you can't find purpose. And a lot of times people are go, 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 and they're really type A. And so for me, it was being able to say, okay, I can take off for a week and everything's going to be fine. Or I can be off this afternoon, or like we close at Fridays at 12:30. When I first thought of doing that, I was like, "Oh gosh, what if all the clients in the world find another lawyer because I'm not open on Friday afternoons?" But that obviously didn't happen. Nobody used to come in anyway. They would always cancel their appointments. So, letting go of that control a little bit.
And that's tough. That is arguably a personality trait that some have and that some do not have. So hopefully speaking to the ones that may find themselves struggling with the positive attitude or finding that particular mindset, what have you done in particular? Is there any kind of practice that you implement daily or weekly, or anything you do that you find unique that helps you focus on the positive and keeping that mindset?
Well, sometimes I slip a little because there are some very testy other lawyers out there. And not to say I'm not testy occasionally, but not much. Is that you have to remind yourself of the good stuff. There are so many bad things. And even when I'm with a client, I try to steer them away. And you can imagine, as a divorce lawyer, I have people that want to complain the entire time they're in my office. I try to steer them out of that into, okay, but let's talk about what we can do to get to the next place. Let's talk about how good your life's going to be once you're away from this person. Instead of complaining about all the things that happen, because it's not really, once we get that history, let's not talk about this every time. And so all around the office, every now and then, I'll have a moratorium on being negative. And so I'll just say, and I know the paralegal that sits across my office from me, I know how hard it is. Because I can hear her going, "Oh, that blah blah is such a nice person," when they've just hung up on her or something, right? Because people are in a bad mood when they're going through a divorce.
Yeah, I think that's important too. In whatever you're doing in life, finding time, because we're all busy. And the professionals in the legal world, every minute of your day is often blocked. You're doing something, and so finding that important time to set aside, really just to focus on what's going well. I've seen that personally shape my day to day, and so I love hearing that you've used that as well. Would you give anyone advice that has attempted this and maybe struggled with it ongoing? I know you've given several pieces here, but anything else that you would help those who are truly struggling with that mindset?
I would say that it's going to take them going within, which may sound a little woo-woo, but in your heart of hearts, what drives you, what your purpose is. And you may lose sight of that because of the requirements of your practice, your clients, but just go within. Take some time to think, to quiet, like you were talking about the noise, to get away from the noise and just to think and just to let your intuition speak to you.
I think just that practice itself is going to, if you're intentional about it and you really take time to find some, time for introspective evaluation, you're going to find that, and especially if you're intentional about it. What questions have I failed to ask you? Any particular question that you would have asked yourself around this topic that I haven't?
Around purpose. I think that if you don't know your purpose, then maybe you could try speaking with the people that are close to you and really, like you were talking about, digging in and finding out why they see you doing, like, it's your best. Sometimes the people that are around you are more aware of you than you are yourself. And so I have a paralegal that's been with me many years, like since I first started practicing, 26 years ago. And she says, but you're such a good trial lawyer, and you're such a good, and she'll tell me things about myself that I don't really look at. And so I think if you really struggle, then maybe talk to the people around you. Don't be afraid to share that you're feeling a little lost or you're not feeling as motivated. Believe me, they probably know it already.
You're absolutely right. And if you haven't opened the door and asked for it, it's often that it's from my experience, they're not going to proactively give you that information. You do have to open the door up and consistently ask. I think that's such a good piece of advice. Leigh, this has been a good, quick discussion. I hope those that are listening are ultimately inspired to go out and seek that purpose if they haven't done so already. I've seen it transform your practice, and right. I know your clients. We see it every single month of new clients just loving you, and there is a real difference when we work with firms across the country. That those are things we don't often experience. So we appreciate that. We appreciate the time you've taken to share that. What's the best way for listeners to contact you?
They can contact me at leigh@LeighDanielLaw.com.
Perfect. Thank you again, Leigh.
Thank you, Tanner.
LAWsome by Consultwebs with Tanner Jones. For show notes, links, and info, go to consultwebs.com/podcast. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Watch for the next LAWsome episode to discover more breakthrough insights to build a thriving law firm.